welcome to Finishing What They Started, the latest in the series that we're doing on using Tableau with Salesforce data. This will involve a deep dive into the Tableau dashboard starters for Salesforce that were released a few weeks ago. All right, here's the agenda today. We'll do a couple of introductions. We'll do an overview of the starters, each of the 7 starters. We'll explain what we expect that folks will feel like what's missing, and then what is needed to finish them. Then the how to make the dashboards. We'll do a demo to show you how to make the dashboard starters work with your Salesforce cloud data, and then also how to make. We'll have a few slides on a little tutorial on how to make the dashboard starters if you work with your Salesforce data in a database, a local database, instead of off the Salesforce cloud, because that's a model that a lot of people use and that we highly encourage. We'll give you describe an invitation to a beta program that we have, and then some additional resources, next steps, and a Q&A. All right. I'm Greg Herrera. I'm the president and co-founder of Senturus. I've been working with Salesforce since 2003 and Tableau for the last 4 years. And with me today is Monica Van Loon. She's solutions architect, and she does a good chunk of the Tableau training and workshops that we've been doing over the past couple of years. And she knows she's a Tableau certified expert and knows the ins and outs of Tableau and Salesforce as well, really well now. All right, let's step into a functional overview of the dashboard starters for Salesforce. Well, I think if I get my computer working correctly here, I'll show the live dashboards. There we go. All right, before I dive into each item, I want to just a general point on them. A couple of general points on them. One is the data. As systems go, in most systems you can rely on exact timestamps and edited values and everything like that. And you've got really tight data. The caveat with Salesforce sales data, coming from the Sales Cloud, where the users are primarily your sales team. Data accuracy is something that you will always be working on, and you want to look for things like close dates in the past. If you have reps that have a habit, I've always had reps in my 20 years managing folks, always had reps with the habit of forgetting to keep their pipeline updated. And you have that situation, it's going to affect the dashboards that you present and then the decisions that you make. So encourage you to continue to work with your sales team and just make deals. Say, look, I'm not going to hold you to very much, but if you just do your opportunity pipeline accurately, well, that's all we ask anyway. So just a little caveat on that about the data that comes into this, because if you can trust the data, then there's a lot of good insights that can come from it. The other overall picture is that the design choices that you'll see in these dashboards are driven by a balance that Tableau is trying Tableau, the folks at the team at Tableau that made these dashboards, they're trying to strike a balance between communicating what's possible in the product and then also having a really solid dashboard for that is definitely usable in companies. They'll err a little bit on the side of showing more capabilities of the product, even if maybe there might be a better chart choice. And I'm thinking like this tree map over here on the right, that may or may not be the best chart for that situation, but it does part of this is the goal here is to have a goal of communicating the possible. So anyway, now we can go down into these. Some notes on these. The breakdown by stage. This is the panel on the bottom left. It's a visual look at the weeks in which the deals are projected to close. Again, you may not have a reliable close date estimate from your reps, but if you do, the visual's pretty effective. The size of the bar, note in here that the size of these bars is driven by the number of opportunities projected to close in that week. Tableau visualizations are fortunately easy to modify, so you might consider changing this bar to instead be driven by the weighted revenue, because you could have lots and lots of small deals, and if you just rely on the number of deals, you could be missing some of the big ones. So we think it's probably better to rely on something like weighted revenue for that. Top 10 opportunities over here on the bottom right behaves as it says. The key to making this valuable is to remember that the top 10 changes depending on the filter settings on the expected close date that they have over here. So if you want to be looking forward, again, this is why close date matters so much. You say, well, okay, what's over the next 30 days? What are the top 10 opportunities? It's different than the top 10 over the next quarter. So those are a couple of notes on that one. I'd also note the effective design choice that the team at Tableau made when they were assigning each stage a consistent color throughout the dashboard. That's what these colors mean over here. They correspond to the stage in the pipeline where each deal is, and that's true in all the panels. So good job on that on the design side. All right, next we'll go to account tracking. My first reaction when I saw account tracking was over here, this panel called account size including losses. I was wondering, why the heck do they care about losses? Most of the companies where I've worked, losses usually mean that you're shut out of the account for a while, so why elevate them on the dashboards? Then on further consideration, I can see that in some industries where losses may be temporary, it can be valuable to include them as a component of account potential. So depends on your industry. If at your industry the losses are more permanent, then you probably want to make the adjustment here and not include losses in that. Either way, it's helpful to see instant detail on wins, losses, and active deals when you select accounts on the tree map. Right, it's filtering from the tree map itself. All right, over here on the right side, opportunities by close date and total amount. The bubbles in this panel provide a fresh perspective to what would usually be represented via bar charts. And our take is if they pull more people to your dashboard, then we're all for them, even if they're not the way that the dashboard experts might prescribe. Show comparisons. The opportunities panel also showcases the chart in the tooltip, which is something that Tableau is a really nice capability in Tableau that became available in version 10.5. And shortly, Monica will show how to set up drill through. You notice here on the bottom right that you can click to go to the actual Salesforce, actual opportunity within Salesforce. Monica will show you how to set up one of those drill actions to go directly and pass the parameter directly into the Salesforce application and open the screen. And she'll also show you how you need to modify these starters so that it goes to your instance of Salesforce. They couldn't predict what instances there are, so there is a modification that's going to be required there. All right, next, marketing leads. The boxed row of numbers at the top here has a conversion rate that may or may not be relevant to all companies that are using Salesforce. Specifically, that's if you're in the Salesforce apps, there's a flow where you create a new opportunity when you convert a lead to a contact. You'll want to verify that is a meaningful metric in your company. First, your company may have implemented account-based marketing or otherwise be in a situation where most opportunities are open from existing contacts and not from leads. For us, we've been using it for 15 years. We've converted so many leads to contacts, and then they've come back to buy from us again that a large number of our of our opportunities are actually worked with contacts, with people that have been contacts for a long time. So it's very, very, very infrequent where we're opening a new opportunity from a lead. So that might be the case in your organization as well. So you just want to keep look into that as you roll this out. And if it is the case that that's not something you use, then go ahead and modify it to change to something else, looking at your campaign members instead, and where you're looking for conversions from marketing qualified into opportunities, which could happen with accounts and not just leads. All right. The other point on this map is Tableau has some great mapping capabilities, and some of them have built-in census and including built-in census and demographic data to enhance your maps. As Salesforce customers, you're likely to find yourself lamenting the number of free-form address entry fields that are in standard Salesforce functionality. For instance, the zip code. Maps rely on zip codes, and if you don't have solid zip codes in there, then it's not going to be as useful. Ironically, if you have really good zip code info, specifically the 9-digit zip code, Tableau doesn't handle the 9-digit zip code so well, so you actually have to run a calculation on it to just show Tableau the first 5 digits when you have a 9-digit zip, and it'll work well. But anyway, that's a little bit on the mapping. Next one is the opportunity overview. You'll notice on the right side over here, of the top bar, it shows a win rate, conversion rate, and that's based on the filters that you set. The win rate is actually one of the 4 leading indicators that tell you the direction of where your future sales results are going. The other 3 are the pipeline growth, the average deal size, and the average velocity. Adding panels to track the trends in those 4 leading indicators is something that we encourage for all our clients. Though I've noticed quite a few folks in the audience today have been to our workshops, and that's what we build in the workshops. So however, pipeline growth is not one that you can track from a direct connection to Salesforce. We'll talk about these are all these dashboards are built off of a Tableau directly connecting to the Salesforce cloud data. There's some limitations involved in that we'll get into, but one of them is the pipeline growth, and we'll describe that one in a bit more detail in the next section of the webinar. Next, we look at the quarterly sales result. The panel at the bottom right, cumulative sales quarter comparative, includes the ability to compare the current quarter versus the previous quarter versus the same quarter a year ago. Many Tableau users have difficulty creating the rather involved relative time calculations that build these groupings. So we encourage you to reuse the code that you'll find in this dashboard. Take that code and use it in other dashboards that you create, because those are very useful groupings that you're going to be using over and over, especially in Salesforce related data. This dashboard also includes a data entry field here into which you can type the goal for the quarter. We expect that the capability to read quarterly goals from Salesforce or a database or a file will be one of the first enhancements that you'll find yourself making to the dashboards, because most organizations do have their sales goals stored somewhere, and that's a good place from which to source these. All right, the last 2, we've covered a lot of the main points, and on these last 2, the opportunity tracking and the top 20 accounts by expected amount, want to have a little point about expected amount. All of these dashboards, they do provide visibility into expected amount, which is the amount multiplied by the probability. And in most organizations, the probability is set based on the stage of the deal. In the next section of the webinar, we're going to show you how to evaluate whether those probability settings are giving you reasonable numbers. I know that I worked at a software company for like 10 years, and we never changed our probabilities. They were driven by the stage. The system would set them, and then that probability was the probability for all the deals set in, over the 10 years. You'll see now with the capabilities that you have in Tableau and Salesforce that you can actually start looking at how accurate those standard probabilities are, and maybe entertain modifying them so to give you a better view of what's coming. All right, so that's the tour of the 7 dashboards. Coming up here, Monica will show some of the specifics about how to wire them to your data. So getting back to the Prezo, we want to now discuss what's missing. The specifically, we'll touch on revenue attribution, sales bandwidth optimization, forecast accuracy, pipeline growth, campaign effectiveness. There are other things that are missing, but I do want to note that things that are missing are all missing because of the limitations of hitting directly against the Salesforce tables. Many of these functions like revenue attribution, pipeline growth, etc., they require a good amount, sometimes a very involved amount of data prep. You have to really change the way that the data is organized, because Salesforce, though it's a very clean data model, it is at its core, it has to be optimized for the application. But when it's optimized for the application, it's not organized the way that you need it for reporting and analysis. So best to pull the data into, or to be able to do these types of things, you have to pull the data into a database and then do the reorganization in there. Once you do that, you're going to have some fantastic capabilities. One of them, we've done a webinar on, we call it the Holy Grail of marketing analytics, and that's basically revenue attribution, of telling you which campaigns are the best revenue drivers. And you achieve this by pulling your data into the database and then applying an algorithm that evaluates the marketing campaigns, the marketing engagements that happened before opportunities were won, and then calculate how much revenue is reasonably attributable to each of those marketing campaigns. And then that gives you guidance on which marketing campaigns you want to keep doing and which ones you want to improve your ROI by not doing anymore. Another capability I was talking about, for marketing decision making here, a lot of organizations, you've got your sales organization is one of your biggest expenses. You have hundreds, maybe thousands of sales reps out there. Every day you're kind of counting on them to be making the best decisions about how to spend their day. And within Tableau, since you've got the capability to represent lots of different factors, like for a sales rep making a decision about who they're going to chase in a particular day, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Whether the deal is in the pipeline right now, whether there's a lot of activity from the same, a lot of people from the same company that are checking out our materials on our website or our marketing materials, how often those people are doing that, whether they're new, lots of factors. This visualization tool, Tableau, is fantastic at congealing down many factors into a view that people can tell at a glance that, yeah, that's one that deserves my attention. All those factors that I described are all represented here. The way in the way that the accounts are sorted, and the size of the circles, the colors of the circles tell you whether they're newly engaged or not, and then it's only taking a slice of the recent time frame. So it's a nice console here. Is this something that every account that's going to fit every account? Well, the concept will fit every account, but the specifics about what's important at that account, those are going to be driven and need to be customized for however it is that your team goes out there and creates demand. But you can feel pretty confident that Tableau is going to be able to give you a pretty good view of it, and B, you're not going to be able to do this straight from the regular Salesforce tables as they exist in the cloud. there's a lot of data here. And in fact, in a lot of these cases, you're going to need data from systems that are outside of Salesforce too, like what did they buy, and what's their total purchase history that might be sitting in your ERP system. What pages on the website are they hitting? That's probably sitting in your marketing automation system. So you can pull those together into that. This one I'm going to switch over to how much of our pipeline do we win. I'm going to actually switch over to a live look at that in Tableau. The scenario here, very, very common. Just every sales manager that I've ever worked with has wanted to know the answer to this question. What is our pipeline today? Tell us about what we're going to sell in the next X days. So what we have here is a console that's set up where you can specify, okay, let's look back a year. Let's go back to August 1st of 2017 and say, looking at what our pipeline said, all the deals that were in our pipeline, open deals in our pipeline as of August 1st of 2017, how much of those, what amount of that pipeline closed within the subsequent, say, 365 days? And I call it a console because these are changeable. You can change it from 365 to any number, and you can change the baseline date from March or August 1st to any number or any date, and then look at it. So what we see here is this is the full projected amount, not a weighted amount, as of that baseline date, August 1st, 2017. What did we say we were going to do? Then this second column is the actual amount converted by stage. And why stage is important is because, remember, we were talking about when I was talking about expected amounts, that it's usually driven by the stage, and then the stage has a default probability that's assigned to it. Well, here's the probabilities that happened in that by stage for that period. Here's the expected amounts that were applied by the probabilities that are set, that are tied to the stages and the historical probability amounts. And you can see that in almost all cases here, it's dramatically different. And that's why I think it makes it worthwhile to change this more frequently than every 10 years so that you can see the picture of that. The other question the other very common question that all sales managers want to know is, all right, so if I am going to get $727,000 out of what we were every 1.6 million in potential, then is that what our full picture is going to be? Well, if you're looking at a baseline period and a time frame like this, you're also going to have some deals that come in after the that baseline date, but close within the time frame. So we show that by just adding a new calculated stage called new in time frame that is a bucket that grabs all the amounts that came in that were closed during the time frame, but that they weren't open on this date in the past. So on this is how much closed in that 365 days that was not even in the pipeline at the beginning of the period that you're looking at. So very, very valuable, very in-demand capability, and not and it's missing because of the limitations in the data. It's nothing against the team at Tableau that made these starters. They just you're not able to do this with the standard data in the Salesforce cloud. Other examples are, what's the trend in the pipeline growth? The opportunity table in Salesforce is a static. It tells you it's a snapshot, tells you where you are today, but it doesn't tell you what all the factors were that got you there. The numbers that you have in your pipeline open right now are a combination of new deals, changes to existing deals, in the size of existing deals, and changes in the stage. So every sales manager wants to know how it breaks down in component-wise. Like in this example, this green line up here is showing the direction of new deals. So right now in this part of the organization, they're actually doing pretty well on finding new deals. Where they're having some issue is with the they're not progressing their deals through the stages positively. So this lets you refine where you're going to invest in sales training, or you got to focus on the sales cycles themselves. You're doing all right in prospecting, for instance. All right, so next one is within, are we gaining new prospects or recycling? This is a marketing question, and you want to track it's really easy to track in Salesforce how many marketing engagements we've had. You look at your campaigns and the campaign tables and look at how many engagements we've had. But a very important indicator is, are our engagements coming from people who we've been engaged with already, or are we adding new blood, recruiting new people into earshot of us? And so you want to be able to do that. Again, that requires a couple of passes through the campaign engagements, so that you can flag the ones that are brand new for a customer, so you can know when the customer started, and then you have that. And you can't do that multiple pass within the Salesforce live tables. All right, so that's the tour of capabilities of what's missing. Then we're going to now shift into a quick overview of the different options for surfacing Salesforce data in Tableau, just to give a little foundation on that, because a lot of what we do and what we're talking about the rest of the session here just is affected by that. So methods to surface Salesforce data in Tableau. Probably the number one most frequent starting place is do a manual extract. Have a human log into Salesforce, run a report, put it in output to Excel, and then read that spreadsheet into Tableau. Nothing automatic about that. So the next step is better. It's utilize the Tableau direct connection to Salesforce Cloud. There you don't have to, you can, once you publish it into Tableau server, put it on a schedule, it will go and refresh the data, which is really, really good. But as we described, you're limited to the Salesforce Cloud tables as they are. You're not able to do some of those really important things that we talked about. So, but it is much better and easy to implement versus, much better than item one, and very easy to implement. So we encourage you to do that. But where we expect everybody's going to get to, at least at a minimum, is number 3, which is where you connect Tableau. You make a replica database of your Salesforce data that's in the cloud, put it in a database that you control, and go from there. Then that's the first step towards where you'll ultimately want to end up, which is with an integrated database, not just of Salesforce data, but other data from your ERP and marketing, et cetera, like I described. All right. At this point, we want to do a quick poll. Thank you. How are you using Tableau and Salesforce? Are you already using it with a separate database of Salesforce data? Are you using the cloud connector? Are you doing that manual extract of Excel and CSV reports? Or maybe you're new to Tableau and Salesforce and you're here to learn, or none of the above. You're an analyst looking to figure out whether the stock of Tableau and Salesforce is going to do well in the future. We see a lot of those folks in our sessions. All right, it looks like it's leveled off, so great. And what do we have? Oh, quite a few of analysts out there, none of the above. No, just kidding. So already using a Tableau with the database of Salesforce data, 31%. Cloud connector for Salesforce, that's surprising, 3% only on at least in this unscientific survey. Running Excel, 17, that's still high. And then welcome to the folks that are new to Tableau and Salesforce. You might be new to Senturus as well, so welcome. Okay, so if we go ahead and close the poll, and I can find where my cursor is. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Monica to, she's going to start with, all right, we've talked about the dashboard starters for Salesforce. We gave you a tour of them. We showed where they have some great value, places, the heads up that they're going to need some mods. And so we're going to now show you where to get them and how to make, what are the common mods that need to be made. So welcome, Monica.
Thank you, and thank you, Greg. I want to point out one of the hardest things about this webinar was condensing it down to an hour. We have so much information to share, and it's really tough to condense it down to an hour because there's lots of good stuff that we can share. So first off, I'm going to demo where you can get the dashboard starters. There's actually a couple of different places that you can get these from, and then.
So we're looking at the overview of Tableau.
Yeah.
We're looking at Greg's screen. Yeah.
Okay. So the other things I want to point out is, like Greg mentioned before, one of the things about these dashboard starters, they do use the cloud connector, which means they only work with an extract. So that's something to be aware of. So the data is not real time. It does have to be refreshed to be updated. And you're probably going to want to modify them as Greg mentioned. And you also can modify them. And I actually wrote a blog and put a couple slides in how you can make those work with the reporting database, which a lot of you seem to have. There it is. Okay, now, can you guys see my screen yet? So this is where you can download these dashboard starters. So there's a couple different places. One is they come with Tableau Online. Tableau Online is the hosted version of Tableau Server. So the latest and greatest is actually posted there within Tableau Online, and I'm going to show you where to get those. If you don't have Tableau Online but you would like to try it, you could say try Tableau Online for free. It sets up your site in about a minute. It's really fast. It's a great way to kind of play around with Tableau Server and Tableau Online, and those dashboard starters will be available to you. If you don't have that and you want to just download them, down here at the bottom here is a download here button. So this is where you could download them. We have noticed that the download here button might have a couple versions back of the dashboard starters. So the latest and greatest is on Tableau Online. So that's where you can get them. And then here we are in the Senturus Tableau Online site. So it isn't super intuitive where to find them. So let me show you. A couple things to point out is you will only see these dashboard starters if your users have the site role of creator or site administrator creator site role. When we first rolled out with Tableau 2018, we didn't have these set up, and I didn't have access to the dashboard starters. They don't even show up as a window. So first, make sure your users that want to use them have one of these two site roles. And then when you go over and you actually are going to create a new workbook, when you say create workbook, now in 2018, the Tableau Online, you can now create data sources and you could connect to these dashboard starters. So within this connecting to data, you have all these dashboard starters. So we're talking about Salesforce here, but they also have dashboard starters for Marketo, ServiceNow, Eloqua, all these different ones. So today we're dealing with Salesforce. Here is the Salesforce dashboard starter. And today the one I want to focus in on is Open Pipeline. The reason I chose Open Pipeline, it really has the most complex data model, and there are a few things just that I want you to be aware of that you can watch out for. So you say you want to use that dashboard, and I'm going to just say today's date. I'm going to save it to my project folder and then say create workbook. First thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to sign in? So if you say continue without signing in, you're going to see that wonderful demo data, which looks really great, but it isn't real life data. That's that LE fields and the stuff you're seeing in some of Greg's screenshots. But if you want to actually connect to your Salesforce cloud, you hit continue, log into your Salesforce cloud. Now, one thing I'll point out is this is my little demo database of Salesforce opportunities. I have 35 opportunities, and it could take a while. You think it's here, but this actually is the demo data, and it says building an extract. So you can imagine if it takes a couple minutes for me with 35 opportunities, yours might take even longer. So this is one of the reasons why we decided to go against the database versus this Salesforce Cloud Connector. So I'm going to, versus making you suffer through this, I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. You would reload it, and that would show you in Tableau Online. Now, you could do a lot of things now in Tableau Online, a lot of web authoring capabilities in 2018 and release 2018, but there's a couple things that make me feel it's necessary to download it to Tableau Desktop. And one of those is you can't modify dashboard actions, and the other is you can't see the data model and all the joins. So I've already, versus making you suffer through building this extract, and by the way, it does send you an email when it's ready. I've already downloaded this morning. So this is the same dashboard that I downloaded into Tableau Desktop. Now, you might get the same thing I get. You don't have any data. So what's wrong with this picture? So often a really easy thing to do, and the reason you're not getting data is just these filters need to be widened. So I know that I have things, I'm just going to widen them all the way out in 2019 here and 2019 here. And then when I do that, you're going to, often you will get your data. So that is the simplest thing to do. So you're getting your data, but is it really what you expect? Is it accurate? I always advocate for best practices to always go and validate against your source system. Now, we have a short amount of time here, but I'm going to show you how you could build a little validation sheet and some things you need to watch out for. So first thing I usually do is I unhide all these worksheets that are hidden here, and then I go over to the data source pane. The nice thing about these dashboard starters is they have all these joins all predefined for you. So, Greg and I know Salesforce data really well. We have a lot of people that know it really well, but it can be very complex to know what to join on and so forth. So this is all built for you, which is great. And if you hover on these, you can see the actual objects in Salesforce, the names, and if you hover on these, you can see the join conditions. So later, when you want to go against your database, you want to duplicate these join conditions if you want to make these work for your database. This here is actually the user table, and this they just recursively join back to that same user table to pick up the manager information. So another thing to point out here is this is an extract, like Greg mentioned. So this was last updated at 8:27 today, and there is no option for data source filter. That's another reason why we chose to have these against the database versus the cloud connector, because by default it pulls back all of your Salesforce data. And if you're like us, you have a lot of data, thousands and thousands of accounts and opportunities. It can take a while, and often you're only interested in the most recent data, the last couple years. So it'd be really nice to be able to put a data source filter in, but you can't do it with the Tableau Salesforce Cloud Connector. And the other thing that is a limitation of the cloud connectors, you don't really have the data grid to look at to validate, because I know from experience that opportunities, when you join it to opportunity history, there's going to be multiple records for that opportunity, because every time you change a stage, you change a close date, you change an amount, it's going to generate a history record. So you might have 4 records for this opportunity just because of the history that was brought in. So that could cause a problem, and I usually like to make sure I don't have duplicate data in the data grid, but I can't do that with the cloud connector, so I can build a quick little validation sheet. So how do you do that? You build a little validation sheet. Now, if I was going to do this in real life, and what I have done in real life is I validate everything. I think when you start pulling your Salesforce data into a tool like Tableau, you're going to notice some data integrity issues, especially when you have data that's entered preform text like billing country, billing state, and so forth. We had U.S.A, United States, all this stuff. So I validate a lot of that data. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to really concentrate on the amounts, because you really have to make sure that your amounts are correct. So I'm just going to bring over the opportunity ID, the opportunity name, and then I know all these dashboards have expected amount, and they also have this total expected amount. We actually have been working very closely with Tableau for the last month on revising these and enhancing these dashboard starters. And one of the things we had them put in was this this calculation to pull in a total expected amount. So instead of pulling in one per history record, it actually pulls in one amount per opportunity ID, which is what you want. Tableau's been a great partner, I have to say, in this. They've put in, I think, every one of our suggestions. In fact, some of them just as recently as 2 days ago. So depending on when you pull down the dashboard starter, you might see some previous iterations, but they're looking really good right now. So here's the amount. So what I want to show you is because of that join with that history record, if you pull over this opportunity history ID, you can see you're getting multiple records for this particular opportunity. So let's just focus in on that and say keep only. So what does that mean? So every time that stage changed or the close date change, you get another one. And the problem is Tableau is really good at summarizing up to what you have on your visualization. If you're going to summarize this expected amount, you're going to get something like this. So that's not the right answer. That would be dramatically overstating your numbers. So you really need to account for some of that when you're pulling in these these relationships like the history records and do something like that level of detail. But still, I still want to really validate this in the source system. I think it's very important to do that. So let's go ahead and create a new dashboard action. I'm going to add an action called URL, go to URL, and I'm going to say validate in Salesforce. Whoops, this actually belongs up here for my name. So how do I get this URL that I'm going to put in here? Well, if I go over here to my Salesforce instance, this is my little demo instance, I just grab everything up to that first slash and copy and paste it, Control C, go back to Tableau, put that in. And then the only thing I have to add to be able to look at this opportunity in context with the actual right opportunity is just pass it the opportunity ID. Very easy. And click OK. So now when I click on this, I have a little thing that says validate in Salesforce. So it brings up this opportunity in context if I typed it correctly, and you'll notice a few things. Remember that was 202,500, I think it was. So what's up with that? This amount says 270,000. Well, if you go over to details here, you can see what Tableau is pulling in for that expected amount is actually expected revenue. I would argue that maybe, just to be clear for your users, you might want to even rename that field to expected revenue. So, and what it did, like Greg mentioned, it took the amount times the probability and generated that that expected revenue is generated in Salesforce, and then it's passing that through. So for you, we have some other amounts that we actually look at. You can replace the references and point it to some other amounts if you like, but you need to know where it's coming from, and so you know if you're getting the numbers that you actually expect. So now we validated it. It looks pretty good. Like I said, in a real life scenario, I would validate the city, state, zip. I would validate the created date originally. In some of these dashboard starters, they use the created date from the users, and then they use the created date from the opportunity history, but we've worked with them and that's all fixed up. So I sometimes validate the created date just to make sure, because Salesforce data is a little complex in Tableau because it reuses a lot of the same field names, so it can be confusing. So now we validated it. We go over to our opportunity pipeline. Another thing you'll want to do is go to this dashboard action here, which is their dashboard action when you're drilling in from here, and you want to edit that and put in, I already did this, put in your site here. So I'm NA53. I think it's NA15 by default. So make sure you put in that. So then it'll all work with your data. So when you click it, you'll get the same type of thing. So it's really, really pretty good. I would probably go over here and change the size of these bars depending on what data you had, do a few things. But it's a pretty good dashboard starter. And then once you get it the way you want, you could publish it to Tableau server. You could set it up for a refresh nightly, preferably, especially if you have a lot of opportunities. Like I said, it could take a couple minutes just for 35 opportunities. You can imagine how long it takes for thousands. So you want to refresh it. And then you also could set up things like Tableau subscription. Once a week, your people can get a subscription set up for this opportunity. So there's some really great things that you can do. Okay, I'll pass it back to Greg.
Thank you, Monica. Let me share my screen again. Great. Okay, so we talked, I hope by now we've made the point that this Salesforce reporting database is kind of an inevitable step that you want to be ready to take. We also noticed in the poll that not everybody is set up with one, quite a few. I mean, the plurality is there, but there was still a lot of folks that were doing the manual one. So a lot of the reason for that is it's not necessarily easy to set up these databases. So that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to fill a need because so many of the analytical capabilities aren't available with the direct connection, and the limitation is that the cloud data is not organized. Then that's the conclusion that we reach, that people want to be able to do that and they want it to be easy. So we have responded to that that very common request, and we actually had our developers build a solution that includes it. It includes not just the database, but a set of pre-built Tableau dashboards with the visibility that including the points that we had about revenue attribution and pipeline growth and you know, that opportunity console about looking back at any date in the past and seeing what we sell, at what do we actually do. Anyway, those things, the tool that replicates the Salesforce cloud data into a reporting database and keeps it refreshed, that can be run on with the frequency that fits for you. And then the pre-built extensions in the database that have organized the data for robust analytics and decision making. That's the changes that we have to do are in many cases create new tables that don't exist in Salesforce to keep track of things like pipeline growth, transactions. That's what we apply. So we are looking for. Later on, we'll describe that we need beta folks for that, and so I'm going to give you a picture of what it would what it required to set up. We're trying to make this as easy as possible, easier to do than to say, apparently. So here are the steps, 3 steps to set up this replication to create a copy of the database. Give it, the name of your organization, pick a time zone, pick whether you want it hosted or on-prem, and then connect to Salesforce with your Salesforce credentials, and then confirm with Salesforce that it's you. They will have a step that requires you for the first time to verify. It'll send an email to you saying, hey, somebody else is from a new device is trying to get in. Is this really you? So that's what you do. All right, so that's the those are the steps that are required to get it set up. And as we'll talk a little bit later, we're looking for some volunteers to help us with the beta of that, and you'll have access to that full functionality. In the deck is the explanation of how to move that Monica built, that's showing how to move that open pipeline dashboard starter and how to modify it to wire it to hit the database. So she goes through the steps here. As I encourage everybody to download the deck so that you'll have these steps. These steps are also available on a blog on Senturus.com if you don't get to the deck, but she's explaining all the steps that are required to make it such that you'll have this working dashboard modified to read off of your data. So for the 34% of the audience that is already using a database, these steps are going to be valuable to you to show how to wire these dashboards to your data. All right, quick summary about the pros and cons of the dashboard starters standard starters, one thing to note on here is you are going to have, they use the UTC dates. And if you, your Salesforce, the application actually does a conversion from the universal time coordinated dates to make it, to put it in your time zone. So you might occasionally see places where your totals for a period don't match what is in the data that's coming through Tableau through that direct connect, and that's because the direct connect is not doing the same date conversion that happened, date and time conversion that's happening in the app. All right, so wrapping it up, bringing it all together, the dashboard starters give you a great amount of value, especially for the convenience. They make it so easy to download them and get you started. You can build on that, adding your custom fields, because they don't know what custom fields everybody has done. You will have to add those. So we'll do that, and then you'll get some benefit. And then you can apply those benefits towards investing in that Salesforce reporting database. And then don't keep rolling, get the benefits of that, the Salesforce reporting database, and then pull in other databases and integrate those with your sales cloud data as well. For instance, the marketing and data that's coming from a marketing automation system. I did a webinar a few months ago on pulling together Marketo and Salesforce data, but there's lots of automation systems out there. We're giving you access to convenient access to lots of different content that we've developed over the last year or so about working with Tableau and Salesforce. Each of those gets you to, each of these links gets you to one. The ones that we referenced today often was the blog, and then this one about how to get around the extract limitation in Tableau dashboard starters. That's actually getting around it is by connecting to the data, and she's showing you with lots more screenshots than I had today about how to get that done. And then next steps. First step we'd like you to consider is join our enhanced reporting beta program. We want to validate and test that tool that we have, due to customer demand, that makes a replica of your Salesforce cloud database, and gives you those enhancements that we walk through, like pipeline growth, conversion rates, and marketing analysis. And also include pre-built dashboards that have capabilities that aren't possible with the direct connection. If you already have the replica database, you can install our enhancements only and help us test those. You can sign up with a note either in the chat window or sending us an email to info@senturus.com. The other offer for folks in the audience today is a fixed price pack where we will install something called Tableau Sparkler. This was described in detail. You can go look at the recording of it, but it's basically a capability to embed your Tableau dashboards right in the Salesforce app itself. So your Salesforce users can use these dashboards right there in Salesforce itself. They don't have to go to a separate portal for Tableau. The Tableau content exists right inside Salesforce, and Salesforce and Tableau communicate with each other. When the dashboards are showing on the account screen for ABC company, the Salesforce will pass that info over to Tableau, and Salesforce says, hey, filter Tableau, you need to filter for ABC company because you're going to be showing up on ABC company's account page. Great, we'll do that, and there you go. It does that handshake. So there's a lot to do to set that up, and we'll do it for you for a fixed price of $49.95. Okay, so we're going to get to the Q&A. Right before that, we'll just do a little bit on who Senturus is. We've been at this for 18 years, and what we do is we are really great at bridging the gap between the data and the decision making. We can pull from any type of data source, organize the data to make it ready for analysis, and then surface that for decision makers so that they can take their make their decisions and take the appropriate actions. We've done this for over 1,200 clients and 2,000 projects over the time. And I think if you talk to our customers, and many of you are out there in the audience right now, you'll find that folks appreciate us. One of the great values they get from us is that we are great at understanding both the combination of the business and the technology and the pragmatic realities that are often in place in the business. Upcoming events. We have a version of our Cognos connector we have had for the past couple of years, and a lot of customers, including people on the event in the audience today, are using our Senturus Tableau connector for Cognos, and we have built a release of that works for Power BI to Cognos as well. So we'll be explaining that one on September 13th. Every Friday, except this week, we have a series called the Weekly Wind Down, where our trainers will spend about half an hour talking about giving you tips and tricks and tutorials on relevant topics, mostly related to Tableau these days in the analytic world. We have a workshop coming to Palo Alto on August 29th, and that will be in the morning, building a Tableau dashboard off of the Tableau sample data in half a day. And then in the afternoon, we will have a web workshop hands-on for using Tableau to visualize Salesforce data. And in that, we will actually help you wire the Tableau dashboard starters directly to your Salesforce data. All right, we open it to Q&A now, and see what we have coming in. Actually, Monica, one of them was somebody saying that they missed where they need to make that change for the URL to wire the starters to make you had shown where you changed,
want me to show that really
created
quickly?
yours. Yeah.
Okay. So here's your open pipeline dashboard. It could be any of these dashboards. Almost all of them have.
I think. Are you?
I need to share my screen. 1 second.
Yep.
Do you see it yet?
Yep, we see your screen now.
So most of these dashboards have these dashboard actions built in. So when you go to one of the dashboards, any of the dashboard starters, and then go up to dashboard actions, and then this is the one I just built today in front of you, but this click to go to opportunity in Salesforce is the default one that comes with these. So what you do is you go out, and this one actually does have the old version in. And so instead of this NA15 salesforce.com, you go over here to your Salesforce instance right here, and you copy your everything up to the slash, or actually including the slash. And you come back here, you paste that in, and then you can say OK. So now, when I click on this, go to opportunity in Salesforce.
And that's the go to opportunity in Salesforce link that
comes with
Tableau
the dashboard starters.
Comes with the dashboard, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't make that change, it won't. Well, it'll be a great coincidence if you happen to be on the NA15.
Same opportunity ID too.
Yeah. The opportunity won't matter, but the NA15, there are multiple Salesforce customers on each of those NA numbered servers.
But it passes both, so you'd have to have the site and the opportunity ID. So that would be very unlikely.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So hopefully that answered that question. Is there anything else? I'm not seeing some of the questions for some reason. Any other questions
that came up? Well, actually, we are right past the hour.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we will write these up. There's a couple out there, but we'll write them up in a written Q&A, FAQ, and we'll post that on the Senturus.com. So you'll have access to that. All right. So at this point, I want to thank Monica and the folks on the panel, and also, most importantly, thank the audience for joining us today. And we will leave the panel open for you to give us some feedback and also make suggestions about what you'd like to see in future events, future webinars. And at this point, we will end the audio portion of the broadcast, but we'll leave the Q&A panel open for a little bit, and then we will see you at our next session. Thank you, and thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Greg.
You bet.